Okay, another top 10 list. This one should be fun. Top 10 offensive coaches. So doesn't necessarily have to be the play callers, although it typically will be. I'm being a little bit vague of that just because I want to be able to say, whoever exactly I want to put on there. So, should be fun. Could be a head coach, could be a coordinator, whatever it ends up being. So, a couple honorable mentions. Byron Leftwich, who just won a Super Bowl. I feel like there were some negatives in that with the, constant running on first down. It was not a perfect run, but he also did do a lot well and worked with Brady to sort of, figure out stuff. I do think that I wonder how much of it was his doing, but the offense was awesome. Top 5 offense in the league last year and improved in the playoffs. So you got to give him some credit. I could put him in the top 10. I'm not going to right now. Josh McDaniels, I have as an honorable mention. Last year was not the best year for the Patriots offense. And again, how much of it was Tom Brady? So those guys both kind of in the same boat a little bit. And then Kevin Stefanski, a guy who I'm sure people are going to be annoyed at, does not make this list. He's awesome as well. Just couldn't quite crack the top 10 for me. Number 10, I am going with Joe Brady of the Carolina Panthers. And also a little bit about the Stefanski thing. Just to be clear, I am not talking about, how good of a coach you are. All I care about is just the X's and O's. Do you get the most out of your offense? So I guess I kind of care about, for example, I will take it into account when we're talking about someone like Brian Daboll, of a guy who, was able to help coach up Josh Allen. I do take that into account. But I mostly focus on the X's and O's, and I definitely don't care if you're a good, locker room leader. That's not what I'm factoring in. Only how well do you get the most out of your offense. Joe Brady did exactly that. He didn't have a super talented offense. The offense only finished, 20th, which is third worst on this list. But again, I thought he did a really good job, and I thought that he made the most out of what he had in front of him. Teddy Bridgewater was his primary quarterback, and Mike Davis was his primary running back, who actually played pretty well for them. But that's kind of what he had to work with, and was still able to, I thought at times, really put up points. So, and by the way, when I say 20th, anytime I bring up how good an offense was, I'm using points per drive. So that's where I have him at this list. It's number 10. Number 9, I am going with Brian Daboll, who, he ended up with the third best offense. I do think a lot of it was the talent, but I also think he deserves credit for sort of, getting that talent to play better, right? I mean, Josh Allen all of a sudden has this jump up. And like I said, I factor that in. Stephon Diggs all of a sudden looks way better than he ever did in Minnesota, and he looked good in Minnesota. The offensive line seemingly never gave up a pressure ever. That's just how it felt. He didn't have a great running game, but was still able to make the most of it. I don't know, I do kind of feel like the talent was a lot of the reason why he had so much success, but at the same time, that's part of being a good coordinator. So that's why I have him at 9. Could be higher. Maybe if he does it again, I'll put him higher. Just again, Greg Roman would have made the list last year. So I do want to see it for at least one more year. Number 8, I am going with Sean McVay. And again, this is not a slight on McVay. This just goes to show just how difficult it is to deal with, this whole, there's so many good offensive play callers that Sean McVay is number 8. It's not a slight to McVay. It just shows how many good play callers there are. McVay did have the 25th best offense, and that factors in. The offense wasn't really great last year. It wasn't good last year, quite frankly. And a big part of that was probably Jared Goff. But make no mistake, the best thing about Sean McVay is the fact that he does a great job at getting good defensive coordinators. So, and again, that's not a slate on him. He is a great head coach, but if we're just talking offensive play callers, he does have to fall down a little bit. We have seen him coach a team to a Super Bowl on the strength of their offense, but since Todd Gurley, didn't wasn't able to, I guess, since he got hurt, it hasn't been the same. I feel like Sean McVay's offense hasn't been the same either, really. It's had some flashes, but I want to see a bit more consistency. Number 7, I have Frank Reich right here. And you look at what he's been able to get out of sort of lesser quarterback talent. I mean, Phillip Rivers was not a superstar by any means last year, but they still had the 11th best offense, and they didn't have great receivers either. It's largely just an offensive line and a running back, which usually doesn't translate to having great offenses, but for Frank Reich, it did, or at least a very good offense. So he's been able to consistently have success. He's had great success with great talent. He got the best year out of Andrew Luck. He did. And then he, that was right before Andrew Luck retired. And then he is able to have some good seasons. I don't think Philip Rivers plays that well with any other team, or at least not with many other teams. I think that he had to be in that kind of system. You could argue that Reich should be even higher. I think Reich's really good. I have Arthur Smith, who, on one hand, what he did was very simple. He said, we're going to run the ball and run a lot of play action. On the other hand, he did a great job calling plays and, dialing up the play actions at the perfect time so that things were always open. I think that matters a lot. How well do you actually call plays? That is something that I factor in. And I think that, again, the scheme isn't necessarily anything creative, but if it's effective, who cares? They had the second best offense in the league last year. Part of that was talent. A lot of it too was Arthur Smith. So he's at number 6. Number 5, I am going with Kyle Shanahan. Shanahan, 23rd best offense last year. It's tough to have a good offense, though, when you don't have a starting quarterback. And we've seen him at times still be effective without great quarterback play, but still, it's hard to be effective like that. Shanahan's awesome. Again, he's really good, and he's been the guy who was calling plays in Atlanta when they had one of the best offenses ever. Obviously, he's the guy who won an NFC championship game with his quarterback throwing the ball like 8 times, I think it was. So he knows how to win football games, and he knows how to coach up, especially his run scheming is, best in the league, no doubt about it. So he's here at number 5. Number 4, I have Matt Lafluer right here. Lafluer is great. I mean, Lafluer is a really good play caller, and I feel like he gets a lot of criticism, and I don't get why. I mean, he did have a really dumb decision when he, elected to kick the field goal. I guess maybe saying really dumb is harsh, but it's not the right decision. And I've seen no analytics or common sense to back up his decision to kick the field goal. But guess what? I'm not talking about that. I'm only talking about what do you do with your offense. And what he does with his offense is, their offense was best in the league. And you can say, well, he has Aaron Rodgers. Well, so did Mike McCarthy, and they kind of struggled. He comes in, he gets the most out of Aaron Jones. And remember, McCarthy never wanted to play Aaron Jones. He said, like, no, we're going to use this guy. And Aaron Jones has been great since LaFleur has taken over. The offensive line, which has always been good in Green Bay, looked even better. Devontae Adams has looked way better once LaFleur has gotten there. So, and I would also like to say, like, they don't have a ton of number 2 options, and he's still found ways to get the most out of some of these other guys, like a Marquez Valdes-Scantling. I think LaFleur's system has really worked well with that. He's not afraid to run the ball, even with one of the best quarterbacks in the league, the guy who was the best quarterback in the league last year. I think LaFleur is really underrated, and he is a top 4 offensive player or offensive coordinator / head coach, offensive coach. We'll just say that, offensive coach in the league. Number 3, I'm going with Jon Gruden. This might get a little people saying, what are you talking about? Jon Gruden, top 3 offensive coach. I think he is. I don't know. I mean, he had the 8th best offense last year, and it should be mentioned, there are criticisms of Gruden. I think specifically his inability to get a good defensive coordinator. But again, we're not factoring that in. It's not how well do you do the head coaching duties. It's how well do you just focus on the offense. And I feel like he's probably, he might be the best just pure play caller in the league. I do think he's incredible. So I have him at number 3. Again, it seems like no matter what receiving core he has, the receivers still constantly get open. And that just shouldn't be possible. He has a great eye for that stuff, and he does a really good job at getting the most out of his receivers in particular. My only criticism, I wish he didn't run the ball as much. I'm not a huge fan of that, but again, it's effective, so I won't complain. Number 2, I'm going with Andy Reid, someone who many people would have at number 1. He's kind of the guy where it's all down the field, make stuff happen. He does a great job of that stuff. He absolutely does. And obviously having Mahomes and Tyreek Hill, that's kind of like the dream scenario for him, not to mention all those other fast receivers and a Travis Kelce, didn't have his best Super Bowl last year. I think it's fair to say it was kind of weird how he still kept trying to go for all that deep stuff when Tampa Bay was playing cover 2. And most people thought Tampa Bay would be playing cover 2 because when they played cover 1, it backfired immediately. So that wasn't great. But again, I'm not going to use one game to like completely color my opinion on him. I already know what he is. We all already know what he is. You can argue the clock management stuff, but as a whole, really good. Number 1, I'm going Sean Payton. I really am. I think that Sean Payton's great. And as a Buccaneers fan, I bumped my microphone. As a Buccaneers fan, I'm not a huge fan of him personally, but I'm not going to let that, again, color my judgment on what I think about him as a coach. His offensive, X's and O's are incredible. The guy had the sixth best offense last year. Think about that. The team that had Taysom Hill play, I believe, was 3 games and had, clearly injured Drew Brees down the stretch, who just wasn't the same. Brees was fine in the beginning of the season, still ended up with the sixth best offense in football in terms of points per drive. That's insane. Like, that's just ridiculous. How did he manage to make that work? And it's because he's so good at, these zone buster plays, and he can get you into zone because he does have Alvin Kamara, and he has Taysom Hill who can get you into zone as well with that whole unique situation that he does. He's the most innovative coach. I feel like he's changed the game more than anyone else on this list. He's an easy number 1 for me. Maybe not easy, but I feel pretty confident. I feel good about putting him at number 1. He's so good at that stuff. So that's what I think. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. What are your thoughts on this list? Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.